Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Home Season 2, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So things at the stadium are not kind of working out all around. There's kind of it's just a domino effect. I think it's just stuff building and building and building until it kind of collapses upon itself. So first and foremost, eventually word gets out that, well, they know that Eon Yu is going, and they also know Chan Yong is going, and the other two are going too, not knowing one of them is dead. Granted, Chief Yi kind of knows that, but she's not saying anything to anyone. So, but the other one is under Young's daughters, which we found out about it, which we'll talk about more when we get to her side of things. But we also don't know what she did afterwards, because abandoned the body and must have sent. He must be out in a while, because we see the baby monster is out and about, still following her. But I don't know if her mom knows about it, because her mom didn't know anything about it when because Yikion attacked it, so it's like she has no idea about what she's done, that she has continued to monsterize other people. So Home Dude's probably out there like on a leash, kind of like, oh, you're free, but like you're still under my control until I tell you to come back. It's a whole thing. Like I said, we'll get to it when we get to Yikion's side of things, but that's all happening. And I thought it was so interesting that Seong, well, let's first and foremost start off with Dr. Lim. The fact is, doing his thing again where he's pushing a little too much, because he gets Junil to visit his mom, and his mom's like, oh, look at me, I'm better. But Junil, like, obviously, they don't really talk about it, but it does seem like he is a little not all there, sadly. There might be some mental impairment on his part. It does seem like it, but because for him it's like he's not understanding what his mom is saying, but it's also like the trauma and pain of every time you get better you get sick, and so how I'm going to end your pain, I'm going to like permanently kill you. Like Dr. Lin was really pushed him to do that, because he's like, oh, this is how you save your mom, because he figured this would be some kind of some trigger to test June ill circumstances. And he ends up forcing his mom to drink something that would kill her. And he was like, oh, I did it. But then he saw that she was still alive, and he was so frustrated, because he's like, you're supposed to die. You're supposed to be dead. It's like I said, it's just this guy who loves his mom and cares about her and just wants her suffering to end, because just like she feels like she's a burden to him, he feels like, I'm a failure, that I can't help you, but this is my way to help you. It's just like, I think Dr. Lim kind of got inside of his head and just like twisted and contorted a lot of what he's going through. And so he ends up like summoning some strength, like he is turning into a little bit of a monster, and he rips open a door, and he, I think, kind of bashes her head in or whatever. And ultimately, well, he doesn't quite kill her, but maybe he knocked her out. But either way, the monsterization starts kicking in even more, and he explodes, because I think it was just too much for him, because then he's not going. I think maybe on the normal monsterization process, it's enough, like your body's going through a transformation, so it's easier for your body to handle the transformation. But because a lot of the normal factors into the monsterization did not happen to him, he ends up like, it's too much for a regular human body. It's like all that power was built up inside of him, and his body hadn't been like shifted and adapted to it. Like the normal process, it's almost like the normal process rearranges your body on a level that it can handle the monsterization and transformation, but it was too much for his body, and just he exploded. Which Dr. Lim's only upset, because it's like, damn, my test subject is going, could have learned so much from him. General Talk comes and burns the place down. He's like, okay, we're going to say June Il went over to his mom killed him, and we'll be on our merry way. And it's like, why are you doing all this? Because I think I called him Jeremy before. Sergeant Talk wants to keep up the illusion, because it's like, Lim's like, what do you even want me to do? He's like, no, I'm keeping you alive and keeping you working, because your presence gives people hope. Because it's like, hey, if there's a scientist working on a cure that, maybe there is no ultimate cure, but at the very least, you're keeping people's hope alive. It's like keeping hope alive by telling a massive, massive lie. So that's going to be that's his approach to everything. It's like, for the greater good, I'm gonna do a little evil and lie. It's kind of his perspective on the whole situation. And so later on, when Chief G finds out, she was shocked. I'm like, because even Dr. Lim is like, why did you care so much? You weren't even close. But I figured it had to have some correlation and connection with whoever she's got hidden. I don't know if it's like another child she has or whatever, but she definitely has someone hidden that's going through the monsterization process, because we see her look at a calendar. She's like, oh, it's been a month now. So whoever it is past the 15-day mark, but they must not be like fully uncontrollable, because it's something even her daughter isn't aware of, because she's like, yeah, you can come into my room, but you can't come into this particular area, and pushes her out, like, don't come in without knocking. So what that all is, I don't know. That's why I was so confused, because at first she wanted to kick Junil's mom out, but then you were like, oh, you're gonna leave tomorrow. I'm like, I guess maybe like having another monster in the terror place would raise a little too much suspicion, and then it's like, okay, if she's gone, then people won't be on edge as much, and it'll be like easier to hide her situation. Or maybe it's like having two people going through the monsterization around each other, maybe that'll have like a negative impact or something on whoever's going through it, because she, like I said, she unfolds like a book, and it has like a picture in it. I'm assuming it's her husband, and maybe a son. Like, you'd assume her daughter was like the only child, because it never comes up, but like the daughter must be under the impression, like, it seemed like it was a boy from the picture, but maybe I'm wrong. But maybe she's under the impression they're dead, when in actuality they're still alive, because her mom's definitely keeping it a secret. Once again, there's that whole conversation with Sergeant talk about, oh, her having some silver lining that she's holding on to, or he's trying to give people hope. It's like, no, what you're holding on to is some silver lining to keep you going as well. And it's got to be this. But finding out, I guess maybe she was also hopeful that basically if everything was okay with June-il's mom, then maybe that meant everything was going to be okay with whoever she's got hidden. Maybe that is like, oh, things not working out with June-il's mom. Oh, like, oh, Dr. Lim's covered in his blood and everything, which is 100% true, but obviously you're lying about the circumstances. Hell, even the soldiers are like, yo, they're starting getting a little concerned, because they're like, oh, Sergeant Talk is not informing us about anything. Like, we're being kept out of the loop. It's like, yeah, because he's trying to perpetuate this lie, and they just kind of go along with him. And I thought it was so interesting, speaking of the soldiers, they were like talking, and like Seong was like, oh yeah, it's a good thing you killed that monster. He's like, what'd you say? He's like, it's not something you should be happy about. He's like, but it was a monster that died. He's like, yeah, but it was a person that died. He's like, see, you're one wound heal away from you being treated the same way. Which even I thought, that's so back-asswards and so interesting, that out of anyone, he would have that perspective. Seong, because it's like, dude, everything that went down in the Green Home Apartments, why would you out of anyone have that perspective? Like, I don't know if he was trying to be like, hey, like, everyone's got the anti-monster position. I'm already got this disdain about me because I'm part of Eon Yu's crew, so I'm like, I'm associated with her, so I don't want to draw more attention by being a little. So he's probably trying to be like extra, like getting good with the troops, be on their good terms, but being like, because a lot of them are pro like killing monsters and stuff like that, but he just happened to catch the wrong ones who weren't too thrilled about killing someone, especially an old lady, even though they didn't do it, but the story that's being perpetuated. But it's like, we also see that his hand heals. And first I was like, did he not notice it? But I think he was looking down and saw it. So he has already started the monsterization process too. So I guess it's meant to, throw even more attention away from yourself. Because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. After everything with Hyun and Seong Yeong, like, there's no way you'd be that, like, about the monster like, there's no way you'd have that perspective on it after everything. Well, to be fair, your most recent example of that was your buddy on the bus transforming and killing Seong, so you probably wouldn't have the best perspective on monsters in that regard too. Still, it makes sense, but it just, after everything, you would think he'd have a different spin on it. But he's definitely, he's kind of been the type of character who, Mr. On had to set him straight about, like, yeah, don't let your fear get the best of you, and he even apologized to Samwook and everything. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. But yeah, the dissension amongst the soldiers, they're all kind of divided, especially because Sergeant Kim tells that one guy, the one I keep talking about, who's so much like the new Sergeant Kim, just like attitude-wise, the way he like is so pissed towards Sergeant Tak, but he's also now that way towards Kim as well. Even to the point he calls Kim a coward, and Kim couldn't help but laugh because he's like, yeah, it's like, I've said the exact same thing to Sergeant Tak, but I think Sergeant Kim is starting to see like how heavy the crown is. It's like, right, it's easy to be like, we should do this and that, but it's like when you're kind of forced to be in that position, because he recognizes where Sergeant Tak is coming from, because now he recognizes why Young Seok left in the first place. Oh, you left because you were getting like you could have let other people know, like maybe we could have helped in that regard, because yeah, going to get medical supplies to help her could have helped people in the long run, so it could have all worked out. But for you to make that decision on your own unilaterally, you didn't let anyone know what you were doing, so it is the same as going AWOL, because you didn't do it for a greater, like, you also, it's not like you did it for everyone's sake, you did it for your girl's sake, so that makes it more selfish. So Home Dude is not appreciative of Sergeant Kim's decision not to go after him because of that. But like I said, I think her name is like Jin A. She ends up, or Jin like however you pronounce it. I think it's Jin dash A, but I could be misremembering. It was something like that. It was something dash A. But she approaches him about going after Young Seok, but he still doesn't. And she's like, you should go after him. He's like, the reason why he went out is because of you. Why didn't you stop him? But she's like, I pleaded for him to go, not to. Granted, we didn't see that, but... And to be fair, she also was trying to kill herself last episode, so she does feel some guilt over it. So maybe she did legitimately try and stop him, but he wouldn't listen. So she's like, yeah, are you going to go out there and like stop him? And I was like, once again, he made that decision on his own, and he kind of has to suffer the ramifications of it. But you can tell like it affects Sergeant Kim, especially when she was like, yeah, you guys are supposed to be a family. He thought of you like a family. Are you really just going to abandon him? But it's still that greater good. Like, are we going to put more men of this platoon, which once again has already been cut down to less than half. Without Young Seok, the group is, no, it's actually down to 26 now because Chen Yong's going, which we'll get to later. But so they're down to 26. So they're less than half because the other 32 are confirmed dead. So it's understandable you don't really have that large line of a defense. So once again, seeing where Sergeant Tak is coming from has kind of changed Kim's perspective, even though it bothers the hell out of him. But he gets a message later. Well, he had said something interesting with her where he was like, right, do you want us to find Young Seok, or are you more concerned about the medicine? And she's like, does it matter? And Sergeant Kim's like, is that your answer? And walks away. And she kind of has this look on her face because I think there's a part of her that doesn't quite know. Like, does she actually really care about Young Seok, or is she more concerned about getting the medicine to survive? It's hard to say. I mean, once again, she wouldn't have been killing herself in the process, but it could just be a thing of maybe she does care about him, or maybe she just felt guilty that he was willing to go that far for her, and it's like, I kind of got someone indirectly killed because of that. Like, maybe I didn't do enough, or maybe I should have stopped him. Maybe I said I tried to stop him but didn't, because we didn't get that conversation on camera, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen off camera. So but Sergeant Kim heard something over the radio and ended up, because he was like, right, if we heard a signal from him, then we could go. That was going to be the situation, but you know, because he's the one with the radio and everything. And so they ultimately he puts out potentially an SOS. Granted, we don't know it's him for sure, and who knows how long that's been like probably on loop. But it could it's easily be someone else with that radio signaling them, leading them to a trap. But what's interesting though is the place that the signal was coming from was it Basim? It's a place. I think that's probably most likely the city's name, but we know that there's some of like the laboratory and bases and stuff. Like I want to say like the base that Basim is one of the places that Hyun was. Once again, whether he currently is, I don't know, because especially because the ending. But once again, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, that's that facility. So I'm like, why did you go? Well, I guess if it's a laboratory, so maybe it'd have some medicine. Because once again, he'd go to a hospital or pharmacy, but why would the signal be there? I mean, it could just be, once again, Basim is like a city or probably district, so that is where the facility is, but it's probably also like, there's probably also a hospital and pharmacy, so on and so forth there. So what Sergeant Kim's going to do is definitely going to be interesting. We also catch up with Sergeant Tak, who seems to be going through the monsterization process, and Dr. Lim is being coy, but like, oh yeah, obviously you must be suffering from PTSD the way you almost strangled me because you're hallucinating, and the monster inside of you telling you to kill yourself because, hell, it must have felt good when you strangled your family. So it's like, oh, so he did do it. If that's the case, we don't know what the circumstances were. Maybe he himself was like maybe because of his time in the military, he ended up having a PTSD moment and ended up killing them. Because I thought like Sergeant Kim was being an asshole when he was like, "Oh, but I believe he did it." It's like, oh, for her to find out that I mean, I know the monsters are supposed to riddle you with guilt, but I think it must mean he did do it, and it must have been outside of the monsterization thing. Maybe it correlates. If it correlated, I feel like Kim would cut him a little more slack because it's like, oh, you killed your family out of mercy because they were turning into monsters. If that's not the case, it feels like it's probably like a no, like he did it beforehand or something before the world turned to the shit show that it is currently with all these monsters. I don't know. But Dr. Lemon's like, right, you gotta let me go because I might not, and allow me because he plans on trying to find the little girl, Yikion's daughter, because of what she was able to do to Junil, and it's like what we think we know about monsterization has changed because monsterization has evolved. It doesn't work the same way it did before. Once again, because Junil didn't have any of the normal traditional symptoms, so things have changed. She is an X factor in all of this. So he wants to get his grubby hands on her, just playing mad scientist and everything. But he's telling Talk like, hey, if you let me do this, I might not be able to cure your monsterization, but I can help you control it, and you'll become one of the special infectees. I kind of let that slip my mind that was the term, because I kept going back and forth because, once again, Wu Myung calls them neo-humans. He even referred to them as MHs, monster humans. I think that's just traditional infectees all around, but obviously the special infectees, the neo-humans, are the special kinds, like a Hyun or a Myung or Yikyong's daughter. But it's like that, you could tell, really caught Talk's attention because it's like, yeah, if I can control this me basically I could become a super soldier and I could protect more people in the long run. So he's definitely going to be interested by. I mean, no one wants to die, but also you don't want to put more people in danger. But I could do more good than harm in this regard. But who knows how that will escalate and turn, and you might be more of a danger than a blessing when it comes to your monsterization. You just also don't know how that the coin toss is going to play out in that situation. Some people are not aggressive and in fact help, while others are aggressive and kill and cause harm. So we'll see what happens. I love that Yi Kyung's daughter is kind of going a little bad. She's kind of obsessed with Chan Young. I forgot to bring it up last episode when she was like, oh, how could you go out there and put yourself in danger? Because she's like super in love with him and everything. Because I actually forgot about the lady who's super into Father Park. Don't know where that storyline's going. But yeah, to the point she was hearing people run their mouths about Chan Young going off somewhere with Eon and maybe they elope. But she's like, no, don't you dare say something like that. Yada, 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 so on and so forth. It's understandable. She's also the person that killed your father. I don't know if that really bothers you as much. It feels like him marrying another woman bothers you way more than the fact that than her just being the person that quote unquote murdered your dad. It feels like him marrying another woman seems more of an issue for you. But I guess it's like the double-edged. It's actually a double stab because it's the woman who killed your father that he's potentially in a relationship with. But it's also like, she's not better than me. She's not prettier than me. I'm prettier. So there's a lot of that. She's the spoiled brat that she is, and she tries to spy on her mom to see what she was doing, even try to pick the lock, but her mom slapped the shit out of her and was like, get out of here, go. I've let you use my name and kind of lord it over people, but go, get away from me. And she's like, Mom, please don't abandon me. I swear, I promise I won't make that mistake again. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know if that's like a fully like, oh, you're dead to me type of situation, but it's like her mom's kind of tossed her to the wind. I don't know if that's like a permanent thing, or at least for now. I'm sure she's got a lot of stress keeping what she's keeping hidden. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. Circling back and picking up with Yi Kyung, she has no time to even interact with. No time at all to interact with Eon, which is such a shame because like you haven't seen each other in over a year. The last time they saw each other was season 1's finale, and that was over a year ago. Like a little, well, no, not over, but was like a little less than a year ago. So to see her again and her not even wanting to answer her questions because she's like, because she's looking for Eon Hyuk, and she figured this little girl could be the one to point her in the right direction. But Yeon wasn't even trying to hear that. Like you would think out of anyone you take a beat to talk to her, but she's so busy trying to get her daughter away from other people. It's like, how could you come here? Even to the point she has her daughter put the mitts back on, but also ties her hands. So it's like, come on, let's go. And the moment they get back, she has locked her in her room again. Because in her own way, it's like, I am protecting you. And it's like, how are you protecting me? We get a flashback of her accidentally hurting her mom's. So it seems like Yi Kyung's eye is like, her left eye seems damaged. Like, because it seems like when she was trying to look like, I guess it's supposed to help with like her focus. Because I guess she keeps it covered because, for one, maybe to stop it from getting infected, but also by keeping it closed, it it allows her to at least focus with her eye that's in pretty good condition, because if she doesn't have it on, like, her vision is blurred. So I was wondering if like the eye was completely damaged. It seems like it's damaged to some extent. I don't know if she's like, it doesn't seem like she's completely blinded, because it seemed, but it could have just been because she was drowsy, but like the screen was blurring when she was staring at her daughter. So it might just be like the eye thing is I don't know. Maybe she covered it up because it's like, right, we don't need a constant reminder of what you did to me, so I'm just keeping it covered up so you don't have to see it. Because we get a flashback that shows us her mom protecting her, like trying to hide her away when these people attacked. They knew the way they attacked Yi Kyung's daughter, they knew exactly what she was. I guess maybe because we don't know whether they're part of a different group or what, but these people, maybe they're just survivors and they stumbled across her doing something not normal. For them to attack Yi Kyung's place and know exactly that she'd be there, and just, it was just a small group of them, so they must have only been a small group. They must not belong to a larger group for them to, for no one to have come back. I mean, we have no idea. Well, probably wasn't that long ago that it happened, because she had talked about it like, oh, it happened again, like it happened in relatively recent history. But at the time, it's like, oh, it's interesting because she was like a little girl, but we see later on when she gets hit, they shoot a whole bunch of arrows in her back and then shoot her, but then all of a sudden she kind of evolves and goes through a bit of metamorphosis, and the next time she gets up, the way she looks now age-wise, so let's say she went from like 6 to maybe 12 or 13 years old. It seems to be the case. So I'm wondering, is she kind of like, every time she sort of dies, her body like adjusts to it and evolves? Because I guess that, I mean, we already saw the rapid growth just pregnancy wise, going from like a month to being full born, and now in that year less time for her to look like a, like I said, 12 or 13 year, like a preteen. So, or early adolescent, that mean, but it seems like it's part of her process. I wonder, going from like an infant to the little girl that she was before she turned into the way she looks now, did she go through a similar thing beforehand, or was it just a natural rapid growth? This one seemed to be an evolutionary response to, you were hurt. It almost felt like, if I had to compare it to anything, it's almost, there's other comparisons I'm sure, but the one immediate comes to my mind is Doomsday from DC Comics. He adapts and grows stronger, so it seems like she's kind of got a similar circumstance or constitution. But yeah, Yi Kyung is trying to protect her. It's like trying not to have her around other people, because it's like, right, you turn someone else into a monster, you can't keep doing that. She's like, why? Because it makes them, they finally start acting nice in that regard. Because Yi Kyung wants her to be as normal as possible, because she doesn't really think and realize. I think for her, it's the thing of, well, I can't really be hurt. I'll always recover. And if anyone's a problem, I can always shift them to my side. So maybe that's a little bit of what's a driving force for her. And so for that, because of that, she feels like, doesn't necessarily equate the consequences of like, right, if people find out about you, especially Dr. Lim, going to poke and prod you, and experiment on you. And that's going to be a big, big, big issue. But so Yi Kyung wants her to be as human and as normal as possible. But it's like, no, I'm a monster. I know you see me as a monster. You wish I would go away because you don't want to see me. And Yi Kyung's like, no, that's not what happens. Like, I know this is what you're thinking all the time. I mean, granted, she can read people's thoughts. Once again, we saw it with Hyun. His situation seemed like it was more so connected from like monster to monster, but maybe that's because he couldn't control it. She, on the other hand, is like, well, to be fair, this is her mom, so it probably makes the situation a little different because they have that familial connection. It makes it so it's a little easier to read her mom's thoughts. I mean, maybe she's remembering this from when she was an infant inside of her mom, or I don't know. like I said, because it seemed like the monsterization thing that she does seems to also, it can bounce between being something she intentionally does and also something she does accidentally. It's almost like a defense mechanism that is always active for her. So to read people's minds, it seems like she'd have to touch them. I mean, her mom touches her, but it's not skin to skin action. It's through her clothes. She makes sure not to touch her directly. So Ikion's daughter just like falls into the river, and Ikion tries to go after her, but to no avail. So she's like, "Fine, if you don't want me, Mom, I'm gonna go." Like you try to say that you're trying to protect me, which it is that parent thing of do as I say and not as I do. That I'm going to, you might not understand it, but I am doing what's best for you, because we saw that Ikion had a knife ready to kill her daughter, although over like almost a year ago, but she couldn't do it because at the end of the day, you're her child. You're also her last connection to Sanwan. So, which I'm sure that's a subject she probably, for her own sake, probably doesn't broach that conversation at all. I don't know if her daughter even thinks to even ask about her dad. Who knows? Makes you almost wonder, is that why she's going after Hyun? Because it seems like it's definitively Hyun by the end of the episode. But it makes you wonder, is that why she feels a connection with him? Because he's a neo-human like she is. You don't think she's trying to correlate it as like, because you're like that and I'm the way I am, like, could you be my dad just because her mom doesn't bring it up? It could just be like, no, we're similar in that regard. We interact enough for me to know you're like me. And I mean, maybe she's the one that actually freed him, like, in that time. Because with her power being what it is, maybe she was the one that was able to free him. Like I said, maybe it ends up being, like, we didn't get a good enough look, but once again, the wing thing makes me think it's Hyun, because I'm like, Eon Hyuk wouldn't, I mean, not unless his constitution as a neo-human is the same thing as Hyun, but Hyun's seem very, very particular, just like Woo Myung's circumstances are very, very particular. I brought that up previously about like, oh, like what is he up to and stuff. It's like never crossed my mind to think he might actually be in a different body now, because his powers did recover. Granted, we don't know if he moved on to another body post Sanwook. Once again, a lot can happen in a year, so and we haven't been able to keep an eye on him, and a lot of people are completely unaware of his existence and what he's up to, because that was just kind of in Hyun's own lane. No one else outside of that, and I don't think anyone knew that he was still alive after everything went down in the season 1 finale. So everyone else thinking like he died, but Hyun was the only one that knew he was still out and about. At the same time, on the other side of things, we are picking up with Chunyeon and Eonyu, who Eonyu is still trying to track after the little girl, trying to get any answers about her brother. Tries to push Chunyeon away because he's still following her, but they end up falling into a trap, which would have been a nasty, nasty situation. Almost got them impaled, but luckily they survived. She should be grateful. I'm sure in her mind it's like, no, it's still your fault. If it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have gone that direction, but I was going that direction just to get away from you. It's like, yeah, but if he hadn't grabbed you, if he wasn't there, you would have fallen and been impaled on all those wood spikes. Sadly, someone comes over and knocks him down, and luckily they land safely. I mean, granted, he came close because when he landed, he fell, and she luckily grabbed him before he could get impaled. But they do have this heart-to-heart talk. I did think it was kind of beautiful how, as she's kind of, the conversation leads to, she doesn't directly say who it is, but she references, like, she's hoping it's someone, a certain someone. Even no matter what form they're in, she wants to be able to see them with her own eyes. That's all she's aimed for all this time. Which is also the sad thing, too, because she's so focused on her brother, because when everything's said and done, that's kind of all she has. And once again, that group that they used to be a part of has fallen apart. Like, we don't see Eonyu, like, really interact with Miss Han or Seong or Yeong. Like, there's just nothing there between them, right? So it is kind of, and once again, we haven't even seen Hye-in, so I'm assuming she must have died during the stadium situation. It might not have just been Jisoo, because, like, we haven't seen her at all, not coming up and referencing, Bomb, her dog, but also it could just be like in the year time frame she could have easily just died in that time frame. I don't know, because I feel like if she had died during episode 3, like during the stadium situation, they would have made more note of it, considering she was part of like the crew. Because we didn't get to keep, the only people we really focused on during that whole situation was Young, Jisoo and Eonyu. They're the only ones we really got to focus on during that circumstance amongst our group from the apartment. But my whole point was, while she was like, talking a little bit about it being someone important to her, wishing it was a certain person, what is she doing? She's wrapping his leg because his ankle got hurt in the process, which is very symbolic for when her brother did the same thing for her in season 1, and she repaired his glasses as kind of like, oh, thank you, as a thank you. So it just very similar in that regard. So I thought that was kind of symbolically beautiful. Because for him, it's like, I'm not going to stop until I get the answer, even if I have to kind of find the answers myself. You don't even have to tell me who. But she opened up a little bit. I think it's the first time she's opened up to anyone probably in a very long time. Because he was like, right, whoever it was I saw run away, they weren't human, so they were most likely a monster. But I thought both you and Mr. Kim were dead. Both of you were dead. And, even Eon, was like, no, I thought I was too. But whoever it was saved me. And if it's who I think it is and hope it is, I want to see their face, but they're doing everything they can to avoid me. So someone throws down a rope and they end up getting out. Granted, she was going to leave him behind, kind of force his hand. It's like, cool, if I help you out, you have to leave. But he's like, I can't promise that. She's like, then I should just leave you. But she's just like, after everything they've been through, it's like, fine, helps him up. And during that time, they get sprayed with gasoline because the people are trying to get the monster behind them. But I'm sure, like, if push came to shove, is willing to burn them as well. Didn't even correlate it in my head when this revealed the guy and the girl from last episode who got home dude's body and took his snacks off of him, like were keeping an eye on Eon. I guess because it's just generally their territory. I don't know if they're part of a larger group or they just by themselves, but whatever the case may be, didn't even correlate it in my head that that's home dude from the bus situation, because it's not until Chan Young was like, oh, remember me? He was like, yeah, you're the one that almost got me killed. I'm like, well, that's not really his fault. Not unless it's a different character, but I thought that's supposed to correlate with like, oh yeah, that's a guy. Like the last time we saw him was in episode 3 when he refused to give up his gun. I mean, the home dude is rolling with a shotgun, but it never even crossed my mind until they said that. I was like, oh, that's who you are. Because we hadn't saw you since the entrance area where you had to kind of be let through. We like the checkpoint of it all. Like we hadn't seen him since he got dragged away in episode 3. But it's like, yeah, like the girl that's with him, it's like refers to him as boss, dad, and even kind of treats him like a brother. So I was like, what is he to you exactly? Because I was like, did he actually have a kid the entire time, or you're just someone that he took under his wing and you're just rolling deep with him because of that? But yeah, she's a little unhinged, and part of me, especially later on, makes me go like, is he one? Is he like hiding his? But why go through the trouble using weapons then? So that's why I'm like, is she actually one? And does the boss not know that she's a neo-human or something? Because I'm like, why? Especially later on, which we'll get to in a second. Like, she seemed fine, and I thought that was suspicious. Like, she was, when she gets Sion, Chan, Yeong, I was like, the moment she's like, oh, let me drink this, I was like, are we going to find out that's poison or something? And she's going to seem perfectly fine, but it's like, does she just have a natural resistance to it, or is she actually a monster and like she can recover? Because whatever it was, immediately, I don't think it killed him. I think it put him to sleep because she was fascinated with him. I don't know why she was so obsessed with him. Of like, maybe it's love at first sight, but more like obsession at first sight. But yeah, he captures them, and even though Eonyu was like, dude, I want to leave. Like, what's the difference between me leaving today or tomorrow? I guess it's like, we don't want more trouble from you. Because he even said, like, oh, you're the moles from the stadium. I was like, I don't know why. Once again, I don't know if that's a translation thing or what, but like, why refer to them as moles? Like, does he think they're infiltrating his territory? Don't know what their whole deal is. But Chan Yeon wasn't too happy about Eonyu trying to use him as a bargaining chip. It's like, were you serious with her when you said, yeah, go ahead and take him? She's just like, go to sleep, and just doesn't look at him. Because, once again, she's willing to toss so many people aside to get what she wants. She feels bad about it, but it's like, I think what that conversation she had with Sion kind of like resonated with her, where he was willing to do whatever it takes just to kind of survive, and so is she, because that's the only, like, going after her brother is the only thing that's kept her going this entire time. Believing he was, finding out like, okay, I wanted to believe he was out there, and now I've had the first steps towards finding out that you might still be alive. Of course, that's going to keep her going. So it's the good and bad of hope. It can keep you going, but you kind of let so much other stuff fall to the wayside. She hasn't really been there in any other capacity. She's just kind of been out for herself doing her own thing. Because maybe in her mind, everyone else is better off without me. I'm in this situation. I cause them enough trouble even without being around them. Them just being associated with me gets them in trouble. So I'm doing them a favor by going off on my own. And whatever happens to me happens to me. Because she doesn't care about her own life. But which is so ironic considering she was telling Hyun to not hurt himself anymore. To live not only for himself but for the others. And she's only going this far to get to her brother. Damn the consequences. Damn whatever happens to me. But yeah, she ended up getting a chance to escape, and she left Chun Yeong behind. And it's like not thinking about what could and would happen to him in the process, which is such a bummer. But like I said, she's focused on her goal. But she ends up running into Yi Kyung's daughter again. And for Yi Kyung, after her experience with her mom, it's like, right, all you humans are the same. You're all bad people. And pushes her down the hole. And lo and behold, someone swoops in. Once again, we don't get to see the face. But because of the wing, got my money on Hyun. I always have my money on Hyun. But there's always a slight chance we might get the reveal that it actually is Eun Hyuk. But I don't think it is. But we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all this takes us going forward into next episode. Only 2 episodes left this season, so it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.